And what's up, everybody? Your boy Blake, Money Blake Weather. Another episode of Loaded Joe's MMA podcast. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing great. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's give a quick shout out to all the sponsors. ZenSoapCo.com. Use the keyword GetLoaded. 10% off all natural soap made out of here in Austin, Texas. I know soap is such a weird thing. You're like, well, I got to put that, I got to put this on my body. I got to buy this for the rest of my life. But if you're going to do it and put it on your skin for the rest of your life, it puts the soap on the skin or it gets the hose again. I just want to do that. I don't know. If you're going to do it, make sure it's stuff that agrees with your body and treats it right. All natural oils, all natural ingredients, all natural soaps. Use the keyword GetLoaded at checkout for 10% off all natural soap. That's GetLoaded, all together, all capital letters. And go save you some money on some soap. You know what I'm saying? It's always I'm telling you, it's not like your little Dove bar that goes out after a week. These things will last you. These things will last you, and they smell good, and it's all natural. ZenSoapCo.com. Also, go check out Gear Athletes. Get GearWorldwide.com. Use, any sort of social medium that you have to go check them out. Follow them, check them out, because not only do they have awesome shirts, awesome shorts, awesome hats, rash guards, gis, bags, but anytime you buy from them, part of the proceeds do go to Global Endangered Animal Rescue Shelters, hence the name Gear, Global Endangered Animal Rescue. So part of the proceeds do go to animal shelters across the world. So for sure, go check them out and purchase some awesome stuff to look cool in and out of the gym, like I always like to say. Also, go check out NOP Media /Envision Films. They are helping bring your dreams to life, whether it's a logo, video, you need some camera work, you need some photos taken, anything you need that's far as graphic or anything like that. For sure, go check out NOP Media. Our guest today, man, he is a guest that I've had on plenty of times. He is literally everywhere. I think he writes for like every single outlet out there. Like, it's crazy. I know he does stuff for, I think is it MMA Mania, Fightful, My MMA News, Your Mama News. He does stuff for literally everybody. You probably know him and you've probably seen his work. It is my friend and yours. We've had him on the show, so he's Loaded Joe's alum, the great and powerful James Lynch. And what's up, James Lynch? How you doing, my man? We're recording.
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since you and I have talked, so it's good to catch up. So,
I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, when's the last time I had old James Lynch on? And it was a week before UFC 205.
Wow. Okay. That is November 2015. 2016.
Yeah, it's been a while, as the kids say, man. How everything's been so different for you now. You got like a kid, you got like 8,900 jobs with all the MMA sites, bro. Like, what's been new with you?
Life's not changed, man. It's been crazy, just especially this last year where it's just been, fatherhood and doing this full time and just trying to adjust to, being a full-time freelancer it's been great, but it obviously comes with its challenges as well. Like, I gotta always work, but it's great. Like, I love it. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I don't know how I ever worked in like a corporate environment for as long as I did. So
I was gonna say, man, what made you want to change all that, man? Like, what made you what was the straw that broke the James's back, so to speak?
It was two things, really. I mean, I wanted to spend more. It's important for me to be a good father. I had a really good upbringing, and I wanted to sort of bring that to my son as well. My son was born in September, and I'm a first-time father, and that stuff's important. It's really important to me to be around a lot. So there was that, and then there was also just that I didn't want to give this up. Doing the interviews and doing the journalism thing. It was one of those choices where I had to sort of pick and choose, because before I was working a full-time job and doing this on the side. side, and I had time to do this. But as you know, being a father, and you know this as being a stepfather, like you need to allocate that time for your the little ones. So
Right.
I sort of sat down with my wife and I was like, look, like I sort of added up the finances of how much I was making on the side and sort of crunching the numbers, and I was like, I could probably do this, and we sort of made the choice where I said if I got another outlet or two, like we sort of figured out how much money I'd have to make, and so I ended up getting a freelance gig with MMA Mania. A lot of people don't know I actually have a gig with them. I do video editing for them, and once I got that gig and I was doing a lot of stuff for them, I was kind of like, okay, we're in good shape. I said, if I get one more, then we'll really be in good shape, and that's when Fightful came to the plate, or when I got in touch with them, and that was great. And then literally like the cherry on the cake was Fansided came to me once they found out that I was full-time freelancer, and they offered me a contract. So it's worked out great. Like it's almost worked out like too good. Like I still am kind of like, I can't believe like I don't have to go into an office or anything like that. So it was literally just like figuring out what I wanted to do. Like I knew if I stayed at my current job, and as much as it paid well and it was good and everything, I knew that I wouldn't be as happy as doing this. So that's where we are, and that's why we're here today. And I'm doing an interview in a hotel room in Punta Cana.
Living like a VIP boss, so James Lynch. I love it, man. And I like all the different. Yeah, I noticed all the different stuff you were doing. Like, of course, during, for instance, like the Mayweather thing. When Mayweather and McGregor was fighting, like you was out there balls deep in was it Toronto? Right, that's where they were.
Yeah, in Toronto, they had the presser here, so that was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Because, of course, I mean, the thing that people forget is like, every media outlet is there covering this thing. So it's not just, and it's not just like Toronto-based media. Like they had media from New York come down because like it was just one of those things. Like if you're part of the press, you want to get footage. So it was like it's hard to describe. Like it was one of those things where like if you go to like, for example, we just had the Grammys last week, or this past week. Kind of like that when people arrive, like you literally have like 20 seconds and you have to grab people as they're going along like a red carpet. And that's essentially what they did. Like Floyd Mayweather and McGregor are walking down like this red carpet and you get like 10 seconds. And I had the challenge of having Ariel Helwani next to me. So I had to sort of like, be respectful to him, but also like, dude, I got to get my questions in as well. So That was insane. That was probably one of the biggest highlights last year, was getting to cover that press conference.
And you got to interview like everybody there too, like Mayweather, McGregor, Brendan Schaub, every little.
Well, Schaub was literally standing around. This was at the end, and that's kind of a funny story with that. Like, so I guess once they wrapped things up, I guess the way the stadium set up, it's called the Budweiser stage. It's like actually like a concert venue, like an outdoor concert venue that. And they wouldn't let us out. They were like, no, you have to wait here until everyone sort of separates. So like we were literally like trapped. Like they wouldn't let you out. So I'm sitting around like with nothing to do, and I see Brendan Schaub just hanging out. And I interviewed Brendan. Brendan was actually like, the first event I ever covered was UFC 165 in Toronto, and Brendan was fighting Matt Mitrione, and I remember interviewing him back then, and I'm like, maybe he'll remember me. And it doesn't matter either way. I was like pretty confident to go like talk to him, so I'm like, hey man, just need like a quick like 10 minutes. He's like, yeah, sure, like in his voice or whatever, however he says it. And we did it. It was great. He gave me lots of time, and he was a really good interview. And I was just like super stoked that I got to talk to him, and of course he was there doing the the analysis for the match.
Right. Yeah, he was doing the shit for the Showtime commentary team, if you will, man. Yeah, it's been I don't know, man, it's been a crazy year. Just noticing all the little moves you're doing, the industry the industry podcasting that you do. It's every Thursday, right? You try to aim for it
every Thursday live, usually around 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's usually the time, but it's every Thursday for sure.
Man, I really liked that when the Hunter Homestack episode, the very first one you did with, I guess he's the dude, the Fightful dude, like he's like
the managing editor, Fightful.com. Sean Ross Sapp. He's basically my one of my bosses. So I felt first episode, get him on, get people to sort of know what he's all about and stuff. And Sean's had a pretty cool career as well. So for me, it's cool to like learn stuff about him that I didn't know and get to do that. But you mentioned the MMA Industry Podcast every Thursday. Like I said, it's a podcast where we basically like give a behind the scenes look of what's going on in the MMA industry. And the idea came from, actually, I don't know if you're aware of this. You probably are. Richard Diedish on Sports Illustrated has a podcast called the Sports Media Podcast. I believe that's what it's called. I think I'm butchering that, but believe it or not. But anyways, it's the same thing, but they basically cover the behind the scenes of like all sports in media. And so I felt that there was sort of a niche or a sort of an area that needed to be covered in MMA, because MMA is so different than so many other sports in terms of the people that are covering it, because like if you look at a lot of the other sports, most people are doing it full time, whereas in our industry, I'd say full time people that are doing this, that are paid, that do this, it's probably like anywhere from 10 to 15%. Like the majority of people that cover the sport have another job and are doing it part time. So I wanted to sort of tell those stories and give people sort of an idea of the type of people that are covering the sport, whether it's journalists or managers or PR people. Like there's just so many interesting stories in this industry. So yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it.
It's really interesting because I always have this conversation with like a lot of like when I have other MMA podcast hosts on, I'm like, there's always this air of like mystique about like, ooh, you're right for MMA, you did MMA podcast, but it's like, bro, it's so much hard work. Like it's so much like more gruesome than it is glamorous. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to put in work. You got to do like there's so many other things that make up you either putting your work on a website or your face on a on a podcast or something. Like there's 101 things that can go on wrong and will go wrong along the way. And I don't know, man. Like I always like removing that shroud of like mystery, because it's not really mystery. Like these are normal people that just like they just happen to write, or they just happen to podcast, or they happen to do it on the side. And so that's why for me, like I think that's a really important thing. And I think I shared that last episode with you and Mike Heck, because talking about situational things like that happened with that goddamn manager that wrote you and was like, yo, James, get me on. And then you're like, bro, no, like that's not it's not the way this works. Like
I was polite about it. I mean, to be honest, like I was as polite as you can be. I'm like, look, I'm sorry, I just have to prioritize. Like I got to have fighters that have fights coming up or fights just done or whatever. I was nice about it. And then he starts throwing out the whole, you need to get coaches on this and that. And he says, interview my fighters. And I'm like, dude, that's not how you go and like pitch media. So I get all types of stuff, things like that. But I felt that one in particular because the guy was such a moron about how he responded that I was like, I'll put this out there. Won't dock the guy. Won't get his name and information out there. But it's funny. A few people messaged me and actually knew exactly who that was. As far as who that well, I shouldn't say. Don't reveal too much. But it was someone who they can tell who it was. So it was pretty funny, just the way the person was talking.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, but like that shit, situational shit that like if people tune in that are like me or like in the industry, like they can sit back and laugh because they've had some shit like I've had that shit happen to me. Like, fighters or managers are like, oh, can you get so-and-so? But it's like it's a whole bunch of amateurs and they're like, man, I could either get like 3 amateurs on or I'm waiting to hear back from Wonder Boy and Mike Perry. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
Like give me some time. Maybe if I can get them on. It's like, you don't want to hate on the industry, like on people, but like, you're like, listen, I've got some priorities of my own. That's why I really liked when you brought up, you're talking about Brian Levick and it was Ed Camp.
Ed Camp, yeah.
Those guys, like, I mean, rest in peace, Brian Levick, but like those guys would like work with you and like they do it the right way. And like, I don't know, when you brought up that with Mike Heck, like it really brought back just like all the good memories of working with him, and not having to like hound fighters or like hound their managers. Like, I just feel like a lot of the things that you talk about are relatable, especially to me, but like people that are curious or, curious like a cat about all the little mysteries and situational things that I think you could probably write a comedy book about, if I'm honest.
Oh, big time. And like even this morning, like I'm not going to mention who, but like I had 2 guests that I was supposed to have on this morning that just completely flaked. And like, things like that are going to happen. You have to sort of, I think, people that are looking to get into this, you have to really love it. You have to really expect the unexpected. Like you have to expect things not to work out. Like this is something I tell people all the time. And I think I talked about this last week is like, if you have a guest on your show, unless it's a live show where like people need to tune in at a specific time, don't announce your guests ahead of time. That is the biggest mistake I see people do because stuff happens. Sometimes you have to reschedule and you look like a moron. And I just like, I'll never announce who I'm interviewing until I do the interview just in case something happens. So That's something that you sort of have to expect, as going forward. These are things you have to sort of learn over time. Like I see people do stuff, on Twitter or whatever. And sometimes I'll just send them a quick message and say, hey, you might want to not do that. Or, hey, maybe try doing this instead. Like I talked about this before, like getting a hold of fighters. Sometimes I see people on Twitter, like publicly tweeting a fighter saying, "Hey, I'd love to get you on my show," and not even doing like the @ fighter and then like messaging him that way, but like actually writing a tweet out and saying, "Hey, I'd like such and such to come on my show." Like that stuff doesn't look professional. And the odd time if I see someone do that, I'll kind of give them like a, "Hey, you should try and do this behind closed doors" type thing, just because for the fighter, it doesn't look good for them, because then you're like essentially making someone public, which it just doesn't look good. So, but those are things you learn as you go through this process.
Right. There's so many like I think tweaks and things that you learn about, not just with like fighters and building relationships, building long-lasting relationships, is shit that you learn along the way. You know what I mean? You don't want to mess up the interview 1, so that way you can get to interview 2 and interview 3. But also, man, learning stuff like social media stuff. Like I'm sure you're having to do a lot more like social media and like YouTube work and like website work, and like man, I didn't know what the hell to expect. Like I'm still kind of new to all the video stuff, you know what I mean? But like I'm now doing like highlight videos and like stuff like that, and I'm like, this is so time consuming, man. Like I'm just trying, I just want to make people laugh and like talk MMA. I don't want, but like it's all part of the game. Like it's all part of stuff that like I don't think when I got into it, I thought I was gonna have to be a video editor or video producer, or you know what I'm saying, like anything like that. I just
you have to be able to do everything. Like that was one of the advantages I had in sort of creating my niche with the video interviews, is that I had that background. So it's not like I had to hire someone to go and edit all my videos. I had control of the content. I had the, I was able to design the way it looked. And you need that now, because as we're seeing, everyone wants to see video instead of audio. Like podcasts are great, and there's definitely a need for that. If I'm going for a run or something, I can't watch a video on my phone. It's it's a lot more difficult than just listening to it. So there's definitely a need for that. But a lot of people, let's say they want a specific fighter they want to tune into, it's better to have that video. So I think we're seeing a lot more video stuff now, just because people realize the power of it and the fact that more people are going to tune in than it would if it's just a photo of someone on YouTube.
Right. Like that's one thing I definitely I walked into by accident, because I would do my show, you know what I'm saying? I would do it live, and like I figured out how to do it like more professionally now with like the setup that I have, but like I wasn't uploading like shit to like my audio, so I lost out on a lot of like interviews that like I now will like backtrack and like I'll put them on. But like it's just it's its own part-time job, and like I don't know if people, like I talk about it sometimes, and I think you talk about it, but I don't know if people like actually get it. Like it's a part-time job, it's a little bit of sleep, it's some arguments in between with your significant other, it's a couple, it's a lot of caffeine, probably a little bit of alcohol in there. Like it's it's crazy. Yeah. It's a wild west, man. Like I literally feel like on switching gears, I almost feel like a cowboy or something, like in the wild west, where like a lot of this stuff is still kind of new. Like people are still kind of catching on to all these ideas of things that I think you've been doing for a very long time. Like you've been doing Parting Shot podcast, you've been doing YouTube for a very long time. Things that in 2 years, like I'll be doing for a very long time. You know what I mean? Like people are just barely catching on to, I think, concept like this, and I think media is just barely catching on to concepts like this. And so it's interesting to see things like when I think bigger time media people like Luke Thomas goes live, you know what I mean? Or like when Robin Black, goes live, like things like that, I think are industry changing in a way, man. But I don't know the industry. Like I don't know the political science of the industry. Like I don't know these big time things, but like when you start to see MMA Junkie doing Facebook Live, like it's kind of like, oh, I kind of, this is the flow of where things are going, or they're catching on to how things are. Does that make any sense? Am I making any sense, James Lynch?
No, it did. No, it totally does. I mean, we're seeing, Kevin Iole, I noticed, is doing split screen video interviews now. I mean, that's something I think he's realizing that, he has a big following, and I look at the numbers, he's getting a lot, he's getting thousands and thousands of hits on his video. I think we're just evolving at this point, because people have different ways of consuming content. People like the live aspect, and they like the Facebook Live stuff. So that's why you're seeing the stuff on there. People like, the video content on YouTube. So it's just people sort of adapting. And I think that's sort of the key, is that you always have to sort of evolve and figure out new ways of, keeping up with the industry. Like what I'm doing now is great, but I'm going to have to figure out different ways of like, getting up with the times, whether it's, putting my stuff on Facebook Live or whatever. Like I have to sort of, think 2 steps ahead, because otherwise, other people are going to do it better. And, that's like I'm one of those people where I, like on YouTube, I subscribe to as many MMA, anyone that's doing any sort of video or audio on that's covering MMA, I watch it all, just because I need to learn what's working, what isn't working, and figuring out how I can calibrate my stuff to make it look, a little bit better, or a little, whatever. So it's just, you always have to sort of be in the know of what else is going on. Like I see people who say like, I don't pay attention to this or that. Like you have to, otherwise you're going to fall behind and not evolve.
Yeah, man, I watch as many people's stuff as I can. Of course, your stuff, like there's like my whole, iTunes, Stitcher feed. It's all like MMA podcasts. But what I also do too, man, I have the benefit of the job that I work for. It's a big social media company, so I have like ad credits that I've been getting, like, and like, would boost stuff on, like, I can't name the platform, but I boost stuff, and I'm like, I think I'm doing it right, but like, so I started subscribing to like marketing and like advertisement, like podcasts, and like started learning, like paying attention more at work, but then also learning like what they know and what they're doing is working. So like, I feel like doing even something like that, like that's helpful in its own, like you kind of have to be, if you want to be in a role like me and you kind of have to be a renaissance man of everything. Like you can't not be good at this. You can't not be good at Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or recording. Like you kind of have to know everything. And it's, I don't know, man. Like I almost feel like, I don't know. Like sometimes when I have like 3 projects and I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, it's 1 o'clock. Like, what am I doing with my life? And like, I'm sure you'd been there before when like you had your day job and you're like, gee, what am I'm probably not going to get but like 3 hours of sleep. Like I'm probably going to, like it's sometimes it feels overwhelming, but then when you put it out there and you see people's responses to it, and you're just like, all right, man, I can do this for another day.
Yeah, no. And you know what it is? It's really just the satisfaction you get out of doing this. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, there's many late hours for me. There's many arguments with my wife, or, things like that, where it's like you have to sort of balance everything. And for me, it's like I distinctly remember last year, like getting, like I had, before I left my day job, like I had a boss that was not very good. And I can say this because he was let go literally 2 weeks before I quit the job. I literally put in my 2 weeks, and then that week he got let go. So I was like, well, I mean, I still would have left anyways, but that certainly, makes me feel a little bit better. But I just remember like getting crapped on at work for stupid stuff, and then coming home and interviewing Wonder Boy and him telling me how much he enjoyed doing the interview. Like that's, it's sort of like, that's why you do it. That's why you stay up late and you get all this stuff done is the recognition that you're doing a good job and everything else. And just, knowing that this is what you're supposed to do. So that's where, it's all those late hours and all that stuff, it's worth it. That's why, being here instead of out there, on the beach right now is worth it. Like I actually like working a bit on vacation, because like I don't like just relaxing all day. I'd like to do a bit of work, get some sort of satisfaction out of that. That's what I live for. That's, for me, that's what gets me up every morning, is knowing that I'm going to get to talk to fighters and hang out and just do what I love doing. I mean, that's what everyone should find in their life.
I had that same kind of revelation when I went to Albuquerque. The last 2 times I've gone to Albuquerque, in 2015 and 2016. Like my girlfriend's from there, so the last 2 times I went out there, first time I interviewed Ray Borg and Amber Brown when they were still at Fin at HB, and then the last time I went out to, I did go to Fin at HB to go interview Amber Brown, but I also I was at Jackson's, and because it's literally a block and a half away, and like I made that like a part of my thing to going there. Like I wanted to go there, and there was like tentative plans to go there, but I knew the moment when like I was on my road trip. We usually it's like a 13-hour drive, so we usually like drive like 8 hours, 9 hours, and we'll rest and sleep like in a little like town like right on the border of Texas and New Mexico, and then we'll drive the rest of the leg, other 3-4 hours the next day. And I remember my laptop broke. I think I've told you this story, right? Like my laptop broke, and so like all I could do was like my iPhone for like Facebook Live. But like I knew in that moment, I'm like, you know what? I'm here for like a reason. Like I'm gonna I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but like I'm gonna figure out a way. And like I ended up going 2 days because I got invited back after the first day when I interviewed Diego Sanchez and his sparring partner Chris Brown. And so that was just kind of like, after that I was just like, damn, like I feel so like I did something, like even though it wasn't much, like even though it was 2 days.
No,
like,
you did. The content was good. I distinctly remember you going to Jackson's and seeing all the stuff, and I thought, what a great way to get content. I mean, that's why Flow Combat did the road trip, because they can go to gyms and get content for weeks and for months. I mean, that's the beauty of getting to go to those gyms and getting as much stuff as you can. It's like when I go to events, like they have the media day, but I'm looking at other fighters that are hanging out that are around and trying to get content that way, because you really got to maximize it. I mentioned this on the podcast. Pretty much all the events I go to, I'm going on my own dime. I look at it as an investment. If I go to these events, I'm going to get good content. I'm going to, get more people subscribing to my YouTube channel. I'm going to get people, going to make more contacts, and, just get as much content out there as you can. And like, if I'm at UFC 218 and I see, Joe Stevenson hanging around, I'm going to interview him because, it's just more content. And it's just, and there's Joe. I remember watching this guy doing the Scarecrow Challenge on Ultimate Fighter Season 2. Like, of course I'm going to want to interview him. So there's definitely a benefit to taking advantage of your situation. And I remember you going to Jackson's and you interviewing like so many people, and that's content I know you were able to bring out for months later. Like I remember when Diego had a fight coming up, you're like, hey, check out my chat with him. Like that's the type of stuff you need to do. And it drives me nuts when I see people go to events and talk about working hard and they're doing like 4 interviews. I'm like, dude, I did 11 on media day.
Right, like I did 11 before you woke up today, man. Come on.
Right?
But yeah, I like that, and that's another thing like that I've learned to do is like you can recycle content and people will still go to it. Like I feel like, so a lot of podcasters, like, and this may be, I know a lot of them listen to the show just because like it's always fun shit, and like, and it's I'm sure they're gonna tune in for you, man, because you at this point, like whether you like it or not, you're sort of like a legend in kind of like the MMA podcast game. And it's so funny, I'll come full circle, but like it's so funny because I remember driving in my car in 2014, September 2014. I think that was the first time I tuned into Parting Shot. And I remember you and Adam Martin, and I remember listening. I'm like, damn, like they're talking about fighters and they're going to interview so-and-so. Like, man, this would be so cool if I could ever be on here, or if I could ever chat with these guys and kind of pick their brain. And like, 4 years later, I've been on your show twice, and like, I've had you on 3 times, and so it just kind of comes full circle. But like that, vision, hard work, ethic, and stuff like that. But like, what was the point I was getting at? I'm sorry, I've been drinking rum in my coffee.
It's all good.
Oh, okay. But like listening to people like you and me, so recycling content, like I feel like people either invest so much in like the live thing, and then they drop it, then they move on to the next project. Not saying you don't think I'm talking about you, but there's like a lot of other.
Even if you were, I'd talk shit back.
Yeah, you would. And there's so many like mini podcasts though, like say like they're up and coming and like people don't know them, but like so they'll all do. They'll all focus on the content, the live content, but then they'll never blast it. They'll never say anything, and then they'll try to blast the next episode, and then the next episode. So it's all about the next. When maybe if that band were to play, like say they have bands on there, I can think of one in particular that's local. Love the host, but like just not that. Like if he spoke to me for 10 minutes, we'd figure out something. But like, if there's a band playing, he would not. Yeah. He would not blast the episode. Even if they're playing like say 3 months later, 2 months later. But like that's what I do when like Brunson fights or when Diego fights. Like I blast those episodes so much, and then it just kind of slowly builds up some plays and slowly builds up some plays. But like those are little tactics and stuff like that like I've had to pick up along the way, because like again, all this technology is new, so nobody, what works for one person won't work for another. But like there's so many tips that people are learning every minute, every hour, every day. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure there's 1,001 things that you've learned just using YouTube and like figuring out, oh, this is what I need to, either tag this or, description this or, title this. You know what I'm saying? Because I see like the one that's really popular, no matter if it's, the winter or the summer, always your MMA pro picks.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Boy,
say, yeah, that's when I figured out. And that idea actually came from when I worked at Fight Network years and years and years ago. We're talking like 2008, 2009. They used to do that when they would go to like a gym. They'd interview the fighter, and then at the end of the interview, they'd ask them, their picks for upcoming fights, and then they'd roll it in the thing. So I remember thinking this like early on when I was doing my video interviews. I was like, well, I'll just do the same thing and see what happens. And it started out because obviously as I've gone along, I've gotten bigger interviews. So I started out doing the videos, and they would get, I had like a good view, a video would have like, a couple thousand views. Now
Right.
it's like I'm getting like 20,000 views on certain videos because people like them because they want to know. And a lot of times I'll just go there to talk crap on the fighter and say, hey, they're completely wrong or whatever. So those are like super, like, yeah, they're good. They're not even that tough to do because I'll just ask the fighter a bunch of picks. I'll just cut them out, put them in individual folders. And then when the fight comes up, I'll just put it all together. And it helps. I will say this. It helps if like I can get like a Wonder Boy or a Kevin Lee or something on the show and get them like as the first one. So that's sort of the hook. And then I can get maybe some of the lesser known fighters, but it definitely, people like them, and I like doing them. They're great.
Yeah, you're being modest, James Lynch. You get like 100K views on some of those things, man.
Some of them, yeah. I think my biggest one, the biggest video on my channel right now, I did a pros picks McGregor Alvarez for UFC 205. The first fighter in the video was Wonder Boy, so that was just like a dynamite combination. You got Conor McGregor the pick, and then Wonder Boy off the top. And that one I think is at 493,000 views. So that was a nice chunk of change on the monetization.
I was gonna say, yeah, not too shabby on the. Yeah, that's right, man. But see, like,
yeah, and the thing is, like, and I should mention this, like, I don't rely on YouTube revenue. It's more of just like extra money or whatever I can put into other stuff. Like I just bought a new laptop a couple weeks ago, so pretty much all my YouTube money went to that. Like things like that. I think if people are looking to get into this, don't rely. Like I see a lot of people doing the Patreon thing and like YouTube, like trying to rely on YouTube revenue. Don't go that route. There's just not enough money in it. I think I think you're better off finding a website that will pay you per content or give you a good rate. Where you're getting, or if you're getting sponsors, that's an area I need to explore. We're talking about evolving. Ideally, I'd like to start getting sponsors on my interviews and doing a per content basis and saying, hey, listen, if I do X amount of interviews a month, will you give me this amount of money? If I put your logo on my video or something, or I'll wear your T-shirt. I don't care. I'll be NASCAR. I'll wear a million sponsors. I don't care. Like, to me, it's just like, how much money can I make in the least amount of time? And the beauty I have is like, these interviews I do, they don't take that long to do. I mean, they're short interviews. I do 10, 15-minute interviews, and I upload them, and I have a template that I use, and now it's even faster. Now that I have this faster laptop, I can upload it faster. So for me, I'm getting paid the same amount as someone doing a regular interview, but I don't have to transcribe. Like that was the one thing. That's actually part of the reason I started doing video interviews was I hated transcribing, and I knew that my skills sort of lied in the broadcasting stuff as opposed to my writing. I'm never going to be Chuck Mendenhall, and I can die tomorrow, and I'll be fine with that. So I can, I've realized that, and I'd rather do the on-camera stuff where I can have some fun and you can see the personality come out, as opposed to me trying to be this wordsmith, because I'm not going to be like a Rhodes Scholar overnight. So I do a bit of writing, but I prefer to just do the video interviews on their own. And again, I can do just as much. I can do like 3 or 4 interviews in an hour, as opposed to doing one interview that would take me a couple hours to transcribe or whatever. So that's sort of what I figured out.
Yeah, that was one thing, man, that like early on when I was trying to figure out me, right? And I was working, rest in peace to Brian Levick, man. If that man hasn't been an influence on me, but like he was like, well, have you thought about writing? And I'm like, no, I fucking suck at writing. I can't put words together. I don't even like writing, He was trying to help me figure out, like what I want to do and kind of where I fall into this industry, because I still feel like I fall in a weird place, but now a place that's starting to be more commonplace, if I will, like it's cool that I have connections to like My MMA News, and like I'm starting to do like one thing I'm starting to do, and like I'll give out the tip, but like, and I think you can do it once you get a little established, is like press releases. So like I'll press release to a couple of like, even if they're, local regional websites, because that's a few more plays on my, on my Facebook or on my iTunes, you know what I mean? But like things like that, like trying to figure out who the fuck are you and what you're really good at and what you're passionate about. You know what I mean? I really discovered like after the Mayweather McGregor thing, like when I was doing 1,150 billion interviews, maybe I don't like doing that many interviews, man. Maybe I like doing like 1 or 2, like with people that I want to talk to, with like, maybe I like doing breakdowns. You know what I mean? Like finding out yourself along the way, James Lynch. I think that's important, dude. And I like how you started on the fuse of that, because that's one thing over, I think, the last like since August, really since like Brian Levick's, passing, but like since August, kind of figuring out, who the fuck am I and what am I? How do I fit in and where do I fit in this place? You ever feel like that, man?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think you have to figure it out. And not everyone's going to do the same stuff that you're doing. So you have to sort of figure out what works best for you. And I noticed that you do a lot of like breakdowns and stuff. And I know you do a lot of boxing stuff, and that's great. I don't know the boxing world that well. I mean, I do follow some channels and stuff, but I think you running with that, when you did, especially leading up to the McGregor fight and everything, I think that was awesome. And I saw you get the blurb in Mike Heck's article, and that type of stuff helps. Like you want to find, no, but I mean, that's like, I remember seeing like, Mike talk to a bunch of different people, and it's good to get that recognition and get that sort of understanding, so it's finding those types of things and figuring out what's good. And I think the biggest thing, and I have this issue too, like I need to figure out, I have to look back on at the end of the year, what am I most proud of? You have to find those things that really sort of separate you from other people when they're looking back at 2018 at the end of this year and say, hey, what did I accomplish? And I think for you last year, it was definitely the Mayweather McGregor stuff. And I think that's, everyone needs to have that moment when they're doing things. You got to sort of, you can do your run of the mill stuff, but you got to find that stuff that's really sort of a hook that's going to separate you from everyone else. Because I mean, Blake, this, it's so crowded in this industry. You have to find ways to sort of break out and be your own superstar, right?
It is. And like, isn't that it's also like, for me, like, you have to stand out temporarily, because like there's so many MMA podcasts, and you can attest to this, I think, like they come and go. Like they're here for a year and then they're gone. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, well, I was just helping them with, or just I gave them a piece of advice, or I was just listening to them. You know what I mean? Like it's almost for a certain amount of time, like you have to start, like, I don't know. I feel like people are here and then they're gone. I'm friends with somebody, on Twitter or something, and I'm not. And it's a real weird industry, this MMA industry, man, because as many people as there are, they come and go, but but you find ways to, I think, adapt and figure out along the way what's going to keep the longevity of the show, right? What's going to keep me evolving. So like, for sure, like, going audio to video, I think has been a big transition, not only for you, but for me. And hopefully other people, catch on and do it. Because I really think too, like you said, like that's a big part of what the future is going to be, whether it's a 3-minute highlight clip of why people should tune into your show, or whether it's a full length, feature episode, whatever it is you want to do with your life. I'm not going to judge you. You know what I mean? But it's really what it is, and I don't know, man. Like I just feel like since the inception of the time that I've started my podcast, like I've gone from thinking I have to compete with everybody to like last year, and really it was me and Kyle Steele from Loudmouth MMA kind of coming up with this like team mentality of like, yo, we're not even competing. Like we're kind of, everybody kind of serves their purpose. Like, you can, like, my girlfriend broke it down for me. We were sitting down, and I was like, I had this conflicting kind of interior monologue, and she was like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, well, I feel like I want to be friends with Kyle Steele, like, and we actually talk every day now, but like, this is early on in our friendship. I was like, I want to be friends with him all the time, but like, we're competitors. She's like, are y'all competitors? Like, is Grey's Anatomy competing with Walking Dead? Like, no, like everybody can kind of have their audience, and everybody will have their highs and their lows of their audience, but nobody's taken away from anything. And so that's why I started like create like the MMA podcast community and try to get like everybody banded together, because I like the concept that like, you and Hunter were touching on, like kind of banding together, kind of coming together with like different websites, or like sharing other people's stuff, and like, getting collaborative efforts like Mike Heck with like everybody, you know what I mean? Like in that Mayweather McGregor article, like I think there are times we can all come together, and especially for the bigger events, like it's just like, how though, right? Like how, like everybody needs to sit in a room. And that's why I really like Between the Links, when you're on Between the Links with Mike Heck, everybody sit in a room and everybody's collaborating ideas. And when I feel like there's takeaways when you come away from the episodes, at least for me, that like, damn, okay, he had this to offer, and that guy thinks like this, and that guy thinks like this. I don't know, man. Like these collaborative things need to be more happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think I agree with you. I think the way the industry has sort of divided itself, and this is how I view it, I might be completely wrong, but I think there's sort of tiers in terms of how people are sort of collaborating together. I think you've got sort of a boys club at the top, which is fine. I use that term, but I mean that in a way of just the way the industry sort of come out. Right. You have the veterans who've been around forever, and they're all going to help each other out. I mean, we're talking Ariel Helwani, Brett Okamoto, Kevin Iole. Like, these are people at the very, very, very top that are doing, getting the biggest interviews, getting the biggest scoops, and they're sort of all working together. I wouldn't say they're working together, but there's sort of an understanding. Like, if Brett breaks a story or Ariel breaks a story, like, they'll credit each other. That works that way. And then I feel like there's a second tier, which is like a group of us, and I include myself in that category, where it's like, myself, Hunter, Mike Dice, like Matthew Wells. Like, there's a whole bunch of us that sort of, like yourself, like there's a bunch of us who sort of work together, and Mike Heck, like, we all just like I'll give you an example. Like, if I see someone interviewed on someone else's show, I'll ask them, what's the best way to get in touch with that person, because I'd like to interview them, or I'd like to have them on, whatever, or vice versa. And how I do it with people is like, hey, if you let me know how to get a hold of this person, if you want anyone I've interviewed, I'll let you know how they can get on. You work together, and you help help each other out, because I think that's how you get better. And and then I also have people where if I do something dumb, I want them to call me out on it. I want them to say, hey, I don't think that was a good idea, or whatever. Like, I talked to someone the other day, and they were upset about the way something was. I think they weren't. It was something, I forget exactly what it was. It was something like they weren't credited or something, and they were gonna like blow up at this person on Twitter. And I said, dude, do it privately. Right. Don't bring this out in the limelight. Take care of this behind closed doors. And if they're a dick to you behind closed doors, then you can take it public if you want. I mean, personally, I try and stay out of that stuff. But I think there's ways for people to help out. And I'm really lucky, because living in Toronto, we have a really good group of guys that get together every couple weeks, and we just have sort of these pub nights, and we just talk about the industry, and talk about how things are going and some of the work we're doing. And it's like the Canadian MMA like media mafia. It's like myself and Adam Martin and Tim Bissell from Bloody Elbow and Mike Hutchinson and Alex Lee from MMA Fighting, and John Pollock, and like there's a whole bunch of us that sort of try and get together when we can, and just sort of have drinks and talk about things. And I think the last time we got together, we went to like an arcade bar. Like, it's cool that we have that community in Toronto, and that everyone's sort of striving to do the same things. And by the way, there's stuff that I disagree with. A couple, like I just mentioned Tim and Mike. There's a lot of stuff that we disagree on a lot, but I respect the work they do, and I respect the fact that they're willing to hear different sides of things, and that's why we sort of get along really well. We're all sort of helping each other out. Like Tim this morning asked me about best way to contact this fighter. I gladly give contact information, and that's just how we sort of work together. And I think that's very important. One thing I will say on this, because I just remembered it right now, like, I think it's great to share other people's content. What I don't think is good is saying, please retweet this, unless it's something like for a cause, or like it's like someone like trying to raise money for something good. But like, if your content is good, people should just want to share it on its own. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's important. I think I see a lot of people, coming like early on that will tag 50,000 people in their post, and like hope that like everyone will see it. And I don't think that's the right way to go about things. I think if your content is good, and if you want to send someone your stuff and say, hey, can you read this over, give me some tips, that's different. And if it's good, I'll post it or whatever. But I think it's important for people to learn how to sort of build their following on their own, and sort of do it that way. So that's my Cole's Notes version of the sharing a community thing. Even though I went really long on that. My apologies.
I actually, it's funny that you talk about that, man, because part of the thing I'm doing with the community is in the social media game that I work in, the industry. I mean, shares are they can make and break a post, overnight, man. Like, on the back end, they count for so many more points than likes and comments. And so, like, what I've done is where I'm working on right now is establishing the people that I, will look at, or the people that are part of the podcast community. And I'm like, listen, people that want to be involved in this team, you volunteer right now. You volunteer yourself for, being tagged in something, but at the same time, you can tag this many people, and you're like, these are people that want to be a part of it. Like, not people that you tag and like, what the fuck, I got tagged in some shit. Like, I don't, I'm not trying to hear all this nonsense. I don't even listen to the show. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that you get tagged in like 20,000 times a year. But like, I'm trying to work at that, but in a more civilized and strategic way, and less of a random, you tag the top 20 friends and like your stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a way to do it, and I can understand the frustrations of why there needs to be a way to do it, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree, and I think that, and I'm not a jerk about it. Like I see people on Twitter sometimes saying like, "Why are you tagging me in this?" Like trying to make it like a big thing. Like, don't do that. Just send like, come on, like don't be a drama queen. Just like send someone a quick DM private message and say, "Hey, listen, if you could just not tag me, like I follow you or I check your workout. Like I'll definitely check it out. Like I'll definitely share it if I can. But I don't like the forced like, hey, please share this. You have to, or whatever. Like don't do that. Like if you want to get your work noticed, create good work. Have mentors. Have people you can send your stuff to. Ask for their feedback, people that you trust too. Like don't send it to some random person and then whatever they can whatever. Like find mentors. I talk about this all the time. Find 3 or 4 people that you trust and that you respect the work they do. Get them to give you feedback, work on it, and if they like it, they'll share it or they'll read it and say, hey, great stuff. Like that's more rewarding to that person, I would imagine anyways. If someone says, like, I had a lot of people retweet, including yourself last week, the Mike Heck podcast. Like I appreciate that. I would rather you watch it for yourself and figure out if you thought it was good and repost it if you'd like, rather than me say, hey, share this, guys. Like I'd love 1,000 hits on every episode, but I'd rather just build it up organically than force it. So I think that's important too.
No, absolutely it is, man. And that's one of the things. Again, you try to figure out like what works and what doesn't, but it comes with time too. Like, and I feel like people don't give, whether it's new people want to be new journalists or new people want to be into podcasts, like they don't give things time to grow. Like all of this is like it's a beautiful flower, James Lynch, and you gotta kind of let it grow, like you said, or organically, or otherwise it can, you're gonna get some sort of nightmare.
Well, you never learn. You could put out crap and ask people to share it, and you're still going to be crappy if you're never learning from your mistakes. Because I notice this a lot too. I see a lot of people. As much as there's a lot of negativity on social media where people are just like, behind their keyboards and talking crap, there's also people who give false confidence. I see that a lot too, where people will share stuff and say, this is amazing or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think that you want to see someone do well, and I think that's important, but don't like actually read the content and look at it and think if it's good. If it's like, I think there's some people kind of overdo it sometimes. Give like say what specifically you liked about the article, what you specifically liked about the interview. Don't just say awesome stuff. Like no one's going to learn anything from that. You got to like, you know what I mean? Like It's important to evolve. I think people got to realize that if you and again, this is for people who want to stick around in this industry and want to make some money off it or want to have longevity. And I think you have longevity by making a little bit of money on this. Like I see a lot of people doing a lot of really good content, but they're doing it for free. And I think that, that's great to start off. I think when you're first doing this, it's inevitable you're going to have to do stuff for free and you're never going to be a millionaire doing this, but definitely the incentive to keep doing it is financially driven, I would say, because like otherwise you're just going to, if you're up at 12 in the morning and, you're spending all this time, like it's time you could be making money doing other stuff. So you kind of have to have that mentality too.
I always think like when my girlfriend, we have a little tussle about this. I'm like, I'm not arguing for free. Like, listen, like as long as I'm getting something up in the back end, like this is okay. But like that's kind of I think that's really, I've never really thought about that, but like that does definitely make sense. I mean, we've all done stuff for free, not like bad stuff. Like I've never gave hand jobs for free.
I still do stuff for free. I tell this people all the time. I still freelance for Sportsnet for free, and the reason I freelance for them is because if I ever need to go to a UFC event, I know I'm accredited. 100%. And I can put all the videos on my YouTube channel. The deal I have with them is I use them as an outlet. I pay my own dime, but everything I own all my content. It's all on YouTube, and they will transcribe it for me, and they will put it on their site, and they have a huge reach. So it's kind of a win-win that way, and that's an investment. That's the way I look at it. People are like, you're doing this full time. Why are you doing something for free? I do it because of that. And the thing is, I do have other outlets I can get accredited by, but sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get. Like Fightful, I covered UFC 218 for them, and it was great. But my issue right now is that the UFC doesn't look at them as like this huge site right now. So sometimes it's a bit of a struggle. They let me do 218, but they told me it would be on an event per event basis. I'm actually talking to the UFC this week. I'm going to email them and get a hold of them and be like, look, what did you guys think of 218? Are you guys happy with it? If so, can I do this again for Fightful? Because Fightful will throw me a bit of cash, to cover their events, which is great because that's, that helps out with, a lot of things.
Right.
So, but right as of this moment, me doing this, I don't know if I'm going to get accredited by them. So if I can't, then I will go through Sportsnet, and I have no worries because any event I go to, it could be in Brazil, it could be wherever, I'll get accredited just because Sportsnet used to have the UFC rights in Canada, and that's why.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, let me ask you this, James. How late on or early on do you find out you're accredited? Because I applied for accreditation here in UFC Austin, and almost nobody comes here. That's why I did it. But I remember the one in 2014. Like I think there might have been John Morgan and maybe Luke Thomas. Like that was about it, man. But like, How late or early do you hear? It was like 3 weeks.
You
2
usually
weeks?
find out close to the date, which kind of sucks. Like what I usually do, because I have a couple contacts at UFC Canada, I'll just, I used to just before say like, hey, is this like, am I going to get approved? I just want to make sure before or whatever. But I think in your case, just know that like, I mean, it's local for you, right? So I mean, if you get in, just go with the mentality you're going to get in. But I think it depends on. I mean, try and get a hold of. Actually, maybe you and I can talk offline about this. I mean, find someone at the UFC to contact and just say, hey, listen, I just want to double check. I allocated all this time to go cover this event. I just want to make sure I'm approved. But usually find out, I think, a week or two before, and you will get an email whether you get applied or denied.
Okay.
And I think I'm like 20 for 20, so I think we're okay. So
That's what I figured I'd talk with you.
Yeah, and I always I try and double check ahead of time just in case, especially when I'm like booking hotels and doing all this stuff. And it's you gotta make sure that's sorted out because and again another example, like don't say, hey, I'm applying for this and fingers crossed, like just keep your mouth shut, and if you get applied, then tell everyone. Don't
don't brag about it. Don't be like I might do it, but like yeah, I mean it's here. It's
different because give me advice. So this is not the same thing. But like if you're on Facebook right now, like I just applied for credentials, hoping to cover it, and then you have all these people say good luck, and at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything because if you don't get accredited, it means nothing. So it's important to keep that in mind.
No, yeah, and that kind of reminds me of Bellator. I got accredited for Bellator here, and it was like a week.
I mean, I talked about this last week. Bellator will pretty much accredit anyone, and I think that them because, I think that if they need as much media exposure as they can. Not that they desperately need it, but I think it's good to get more media than not because the UFC. I get why they're strict because they have to set a certain standard, but it does suck that certain outlets and certain journalists don't get accredited.
No, yeah, absolutely. But like the timeline, like I was in Vegas a week before Bellator was here in Austin. And I remember I got my email. I was in Vegas. I was like, 3 whiskey cokes in. And I'm like, woo, I'm ready to go to. I was flying high on that. But like, if that's the time frame, if it's like a week or two out, then yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, I buy a ticket. It never sells out here in Austin. So whatever.
Put a Facebook post up saying, hey, any media going to cover, UFC Austin? If they say yes, whatever, DM them or private message them and say, hey, have you got your email yet? I do that all the time. We usually do that, a couple, like I have some negotiating to work on this week with my wife, but I'm trying to go to UFC 223 in, or is it 220? No, it's 223. What's the one in Brooklyn? It's 223, right?
223, yeah.
Even first. Yeah, so I'm trying to go to that card, and the only thing that's holding me back right now is I just have to talk to my wife and make sure I got it covered, so someone can help her with my son.
Right.
This type of stuff you got to do to try and cover an event. If you're in my shoes. So I'm just waiting to hear that back. But then the next step is I'll talk to the UFC, just make sure I can go under Fightful. If I can't, then I'll go under Sportsnet. And then I've already got a couple buddies who are probably going down to cover it, and then we'll have to share a hotel room or figure out ways to go down and save some costs. That's how you got to do it. When I'm Ariel Helwani, I don't even have to worry about that. I'm staying at the Marriott, breakfast included and everything. So it's until that happens, this is sort of what I'm the hands I'm dealt with.
This is the life. Yeah, you got to get the okay from the boss lady, and then you can make the plans. Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with that too. And it's going to be tricky for me to do this one because this one's on a Sunday, and I work Monday through Friday. So maybe I'll take Monday off. I haven't even put in for it yet. We'll figure it out. But like. Yeah, man, it's we'll talk off air though about if I can figure out it sooner or not. But James Lynch, man, these are always insightful information, and I don't want to take all the cheese out your macaroni out of your day, man. I know it's getting a little closer to the day. I don't know what you have planned, but I'm sure a Mai Tai mojito might be in there, man. But because you're on vacation, like that's what I'm already drunk by now. If I'm on vacation, dude, I'm gonna let you know that.
I would. Well, I'll show you this. I got this Bubba thing right here. You can see this. So this is going to be filled of alcohol later today. When I go to the bar, but that'll have to be after 2 p.m. Eastern because I've got I got some interviews to do like right after this. So do some work and then enjoy it and that's that. Like I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. Do a bit of work in the morning, do a couple interviews, get some work in there. Do that, work, and then play. And so then I'll have a couple drinks and it's great. Like my mother-in-law is here too, so I get a little bit more leeway. I don't have to put in as much daddy time while I'm down here, so I can have a couple drinks, which is great. I'll be hitting the rum here in Punta Cana.
I bet put some rum in my coffee right there, man. So we're on the same level. James Lynch, man, let people know where they can find you on social media, any new work, and of course all the podcasts and all the work you're doing, man. Let people know.
I definitely will. First off, thank you for having me on here, Blake. It's great to talk to you again. I'm really happy to see the success that you're having, and I think that's one of the coolest parts about being in this industry is, interviewing fighters, seeing them come up and get to where they are, and see the journalists as well, like yourself, who are doing some great work. So first off, thank you to you.
Thank you.
Second, I got a bunch of interviews coming out this week. Got a lot of interviews for UFC Fight Night 125, which is coming up here on Saturday. You can find those on Sports Illustrated MMA, Fansided, and Fightful.com. MMA Industry Podcast. Breaking news on this podcast. I'll actually put it out in a little bit, but I got Nolan King coming on tomorrow, the MMA Industry Podcast, also known as MMA Kings on Twitter. He is the man when it comes to breaking news these days. So I'm going to pick his brain and figure out exactly how a 22-year-old med student is able to get so many news stories out there while also going to med school. He must be like a magician or something. So I will dive into that tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Fightful. I will post the link on there, and of course you can always check out my stuff on Twitter is probably the best way to find it, at Lynch on Sports. That's LYNCH. And of course the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. And Blake, like I said, man, it's great catching up, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, very much, man. You do have a good rest of the day, and I'll chat with you later on in the day so we can talk, man.
Absolutely, man. Cheers.
All right, brother. Peace.
All right, man.